It's just not number 12 on. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
for looking out.
I'm reading this right now. I think everything should.
All right, boys, it's 5:32. Roll it.
No. That's what's not.
Then we
We're gonna pass
Oh,
it.
I'm sorry.
we trick ourselves in. I don't want that, yeah, 'cause we already spent enough.
Oh, crap.
If they donate.
32.
Oh, it's 5:27.
I'll get you after the meeting because we haven't. It hasn't, it's only going to be. Oh, nobody.
Call this meeting to order the Oak Hill City Council for January 9th, 5:30. The clerk call the roll. Here.
First, Tom Oxley. Ward 1, Councilmember Diana Janey. Here. Krista Hodges. Here. David Perry.
Here.
Ward 2, Councilmember Charles Smallwood
Here.
Jr.
Here.
Benitez Jackson.
Here.
Steve Hazlett.
Here. There is a quorum. Tonight, the invocation will be offered by the youth pastor of the Calvary Baptist Church, Jim Truman, to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Council Member Jackson. And I believe that Council Member Perry has something to say regarding the youth pastor.
Thank you, Mayor. I just asked that I introduce Pastor Jim, who is the new associate pastor / youth of Calvary Baptist Church, who started January 1. And we appreciate him being here tonight. Pastor Jim, I think most people know him. They know him, they know his boys as wrestlers.
Father, we want to thank you for this opportunity that you've given us to be able to come together in this place. We thank you, God, because you are Lord of all, you are sovereign, you're the creator of heaven and earth. God, you're the author of life, you're the standard of justice and holiness, and you're the creator and sustainer of all things. God, you alone are worthy of the worship and praise that we can offer to you. And that's why we come here ultimately this evening is to worship you. We're here today with this body of officials that have been elected and tasked with conducting the business of this city. So we ask you this evening that you would grant the food necessary to do so. We look to you, we look to your word, the guidance and direction to move this city forward. We hope not to only be good stewards with the administration of the city, but also to be a testimony of the grace and the wisdom of God, and also to make this city a haven for the gospel of Jesus Christ, be preached and freely shared among all its citizens. We thank you for your mercies that you've shown us, God, to bring us through 2022. You brought us into 2023. And we stand here looking forward to what you have to offer us in this year and also what we have to offer you. We seek your guidance in this year. And as we do so, I pray we would never neglect to thank you for all that you've done for us and all the graces that you've provided for us freely of your own goodwill. And Lord, as we move forward with the business at hand, administration of this city, we echo the words of the psalmist who said, "May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer." And so, Lord, with all that being said, we pray that you would guide everything that's here. You would be glorified in everything that's done. And God, you would find this body faithful to the administration and the task that you have given them. We thank you and we give you the praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Mayor, unanimous consent to address the mayor.
The objection.
Mayor, before we begin our meeting, I would ask that you announce the protocol for the meeting so that we don't have situations that would embarrass anyone at a time when maybe public comment is not permitted. Also, I would note in talking to the parliamentarian in the House of Delegates today, Bo, who is a long-term parliamentarian, I was informed that as the agenda progresses, I think we've kind of got off base with discussing the issue prior to a motion. Was told that that shouldn't happen. And I think in terms of some of the discussion or criticism in terms of lengths of meetings and so forth, if we were more proficient and efficient, the meeting would move along a lot quicker and easier, particularly since there has not been a strong consensus to have 2 meetings a month. So I would request that you please state the profile or the protocol of the meeting.
Mr. Perry is correct. That is the right protocol. A motion is made, then a second, if there's a second, and then discussion. Instead of discussion, then the motions are made. So we will, we have slipped off of that protocol line for from time to time, not every time. So we will attempt to adhere to that, I would hope.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir. Brings us to the reading and approval of the minutes. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the reading of the minutes.
I'll second it.
Been properly moved and seconded that we approve the minutes as presented.
Discussion.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mayor, I would like to see a footnote added to the minutes where I was not here towards the end of the meeting and a vote was taken, I think, on the bank proposal. If you'll look at that if I had been present, I would have voted in the affirmative. Thank you.
All right, with that addition. Any other comments? Hearing none, we vote the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion's agreed to, 6-0. Moves us to the treasurer's report. Is there a
Move to accept the treasurer's report as presented.
is there a
I'll
second?
second.
Properly moved and seconded that we accept the treasurer's report as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, we vote the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion's agreed to, 6-0, which now moves us to correspondence. Madam Clerk,
No, sir, there's no
no
correspondence.
correspondent. Citizens' comments. Is there a sign-up sheet? I didn't see it.
I don't see anyone signed up.
Mayor, it appears there have been no signatures.
All right, thank you. Which moves us to a minute from the minutes. Just a short comment here. In 1929, Oak Hill was the site for the county fair, had been since 1914. In 1929, which I believe is the last county fair in Oak Hill, which was now the playground was the site of this county fair, the playground and the net property behind the old elementary school down over sloping over the hill. That was the county fairgrounds. And I found this interesting little tidbit in a 1929 program in Oak Hill, which I think this is the last year for the fair, and it was 1929. Does anyone have any idea who was the largest furniture dealer in Oak Hill and in Fayette County in 1929?
Bill Furniture.
You'll be surprised. Thomas Funeral Home.
Furniture.
Thomas Funeral Home was the largest furniture dealer in the county in 1929. Most funeral homes in those days did sell furniture too. Besides taking care of the deceased, they also sold furniture. So if you went in and take care of a relative who died, you also could pick up a breakfast set. Yeah.
Pick up a lawn chair or something.
I just thought I'd point that out to you. And Thomas Funeral Home said they carried everything from a pauper's coffin to a solid bronze. And you call them at 150 or 106 Oak Hill. So just point that out to you. The biggest furniture store was the funeral home.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
unanimous consent for personal privilege to address the body.
Without objection. All right.
Have an open statement for first 9 and 23. Once again, I am compelled to compliment the leadership of City Manager Demita Johnson. This in no way is to take away from previous managers. However, Ms. Johnson has admirably and successfully transitioned from past philosophies to a new, refreshing, and receptive moving forward one. To be specific, she has changed the climate within her department to one of congeniality, politeness, and service. Ms. Johnson also has successfully realigned the organizational structures, began cross-training, employed several replacement people, and provided for promotable and trainable people while not exceeding her budget. And added to that added comment, I think she successfully brought Tyler back to us, and she successfully approved or brought to our attention Valerie, who has a promotion or has done very good. So those are two specifics. Additionally, she has successfully established respectful working relations with other department heads such as the chief of police, the fire chief, the street department, sanitation department, and businesses, all while chairing numerous and many committees. Kudos to all employees. To the chief of police, thank you for your wisdom, analytical skills while accepting numerous suggestions of city council, such as community policing, bicycle patrols, speed control systems. You can't find them. They're moving all over town doing, and I always read it. I hate to say that, but high profiling, meaning seen on patrol, seen along streets, sitting, so forth, and getting some officers to extend a hearty wave to the citizens. More importantly, maintaining a balance of enforcement and public affairs relations. Thank you for your police force and your staff. Additionally, our street department and Mr. Kirk, continues a high degree of performance, receptive responses, and cost-saving steps by performing many and numerous projects by utilizing his men and equipment. Compliments to interdepartments for the cooperation they exhibit between each other. And I certainly didn't itemize everything that I have observed taking place by our police department, by our city manager, by Mr. Kirk, because it was too many and would have taken too much time. So I ask that this statement be entered into the minutes exactly as it was presented. Thank you, Councilman, for your indulgence.
All right, so ordered.
Point of order, Mayor.
You didn't sign up though, did you?
I'm getting sign up each year. I wasn't aware, I didn't know what happened to it or anything. I wasn't aware that I was supposed to pick that out of the town myself and sign it. So I did have a couple comments to make.
I think the mayor asked if anyone also, and we stated our protocol, pardon me, we stated our protocol and nothing.
This isn't a business of community people that interact. I mean, usually the thing.
Mayor.
Well, Mr. Perry.
Jim,
Usually they're there to sign in and.
Jim, would the attorney please render an opinion in what we've established and what we asked for, if we're in compliance?
Technically, the agenda should be followed as presented. And I don't know about the sign in. Apparently there was no one signed in. I can't answer as to how it's been done in the past. Normally, if you don't sign in, you don't get to speak. Certainly at this stage, I cannot state.
Sure.
Beyond that.
And as I said, I think the mayor asked if there was anyone and had they not signed. And at that time, I would,
But then you enter right into the meeting.
Mayor, I have asked for a point of order
Yes, sir.
and you need to.
Mr. Alshar, I think we have to continue because I do think that maybe the sign-in sheet should have been more obvious out there for people to sign in when they came in. I just think that it was just somewhat overlooked. So Mr. Perry is right, and regarding that, I did say, is anyone, no one has signed in, so we have no speakers and no one said anything.
Very much didn't nobody sign it. He said it was no comment. But there again, the comment sheet wasn't out there like. it is.
Mayor,
Mr.
we
Lawler
have a
signed it.
point of order.
Yes,
Evidently, somebody doesn't want to hear the truth part about the.
all right, unfinished business. We're, the city park project update with the Thrasher Group.
I have just a handout for everybody that can follow along with the update. The things we're gonna talk about.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I just wanted to come tonight. My name's Sam Rich with the Thrasher Group. Been working with the city of Oak Hill on the city park master planning project, and I wanted to come tonight, give you all an update on kind of where we are with the plan currently, what's left to do, kind of our next steps, and then talk about where we would be heading into a first phase of construction. The plan that we have shown on the screen right now is still very much in draft form. This is kind of the results of several meetings that we've been having with the steering committee, adjoining property owners. And just as we're heading kind of into the next phases of design, we did several concepts that we reviewed with the steering committee and with the city, folks from the city of Oak Hill that were involved in that steering committee to kind of get to the point where we are today. Basically, what this is showing is that we would make some parking improvements, which are our number one. They're sited on kind of both sides of the wagon wheel there of the baseball complex. Number 8, kind of shifted to the far left, is an existing parking area that we're considering the location of a 12,000 square foot constructed skate park, which is in design, and I'll go into kind of the remaining pieces of that part of the design. Kind of clustered there underneath of the parking lot that's situated on the left would be a area of multi kind of recreational amenities. We'd have a full-size basketball court. Number 6 is a splash pad, which would also have a shaded covered seating area. And number 7 would be an improved and enlarged playground area, which would include a kind of a climbing dome, a play structure, and some swings with some other accessible elements. What we have kind of run into in this process when we started in working with the steering committee, and we did a community survey where we reviewed the feedback from the community and the amenities that they wanted to see. We realized there's a lot to fit in the space and not necessarily so much property to work with. The white kind of dashed lines that we have highlighted are current city of Oak Hill parcels. Everything kind of more to the east is currently owned by the Lewis Community Foundation. We have had a meeting with that group, and I think there does appear to be some willingness to work with the city of Oak Hill on potentially renovating some of those spaces to make it kind of best for park users in the future. What that would ultimately entail is kind of some revisions to the current lease agreement, which right now is just kind of on an annual basis. It renews every year, and is really only part of the park that's really being used that is current Lewis Community Foundation is that top right baseball field, which is the largest field. What we think are kind of some of the needs for the property that is not city of Oak Hill property is renovation of that third field, as well as a future off-street parking area. Some of the other things we've talked about just to kind of try to free up some space, or maybe putting something like the splash pad or basketball courts in another location within city park system. But this is just kind of an update of where the plan is to date. We're still refining this, and over the next several weeks, we'll be kind of coming together with what we are calling the preferred and recommended master plan, where we would meet with the steering committee another time, as well as host a public open house where we'd give people from the community a chance to come and see a plan and provide comments on it. We did the community engagement at the front end of this, where we did a survey and got feedback on what they're interested in. And on the back end, we would also give them a chance to provide comments on the plans. The other handout that I gave to you is just kind of a remaining schedule that we have that we're working on. So this week, and to make sure everybody is aware of this, if this is something you'd be interested in attending, we're doing a community engagement public open house, which is specifically catered toward the design of the skate park. That's a very specialized type of outdoor recreation amenity
that there's a large user group in the area that is making use of skate park facilities around the region. We don't have one here in Oak Hill, so it's something that the community seemed very interested in having. It's been located kind of where it is on the master plan. Originally, we kind of had it tucked back in away from behind the baseball fields, and got lots of feedback that this is something we want to make sure is very visible, prominent. We don't want this to be a place that is neglected from a patrolling standpoint. You would have great visibility of this area from kind of all sides. But this Thursday at Camp Royal down by the Summit Vector Reserve, we're going to be having a public open house, and would encourage anybody that can to attend. The Camp Royal actually has a large contingency of their campers that are Oak Hill school system residents. And we think, just based off that, the location of this park to the school system, this could be a very highly utilized skate park. And our sub-consultant that's working on this, American Ramp Company, which is a company that designs these types of facilities internationally, they're going to be here in person, and it's going to kind of walk through some engagement with the community members and really try to program and plan that space appropriately. From there, we'll be kind of working over the next month to finalize the designs, associate construction cost estimates to the entire park, as well as identify what is a likely first phase of construction. There are funds that are allocated towards this project as we speak here. But when we look at all of the different amenities that we want to do, the skate park, the splash pad, a new playground, some of the renovations to parking, this could be well over a $2 million project in total. So what we're trying to do is identify how can we build this in phases, identify some additional grant funding that could be applied for by the city to pay for future phases of the project. And the other thing we're kind of running into is we want to focus only on City of Oak Hill owned property that is something we can do something with currently this year. Understanding that there are expansion and renovation potential with Lewis Community Foundation partnerships in the future, but we want a construction project this summer. So we're going to work with what we have right now with a plan in mind that we could kind of modify from there. All that being said, completing the master plan process here over the next month and identifying the first phase of construction. And then we would work on final design and permitting through March and April, with a bidding in May to June, and construction happening this summer. Again, this is a working draft of the plan. Certainly would be able to answer any questions or take feedback at this point. This was not intended to be a work session focused on the master plan. This is just an update to you all to kind of let you know where we're at, where we're going, what's next, and certainly would field any questions at this point.
What time is this event on Thursday at the Royal? What time?
5 o'clock.
5 to
Yeah.
8.
And it's not there may be kind of more of an introduction at 5 o'clock. We have it from 5 to 8 because it's kind of come as you can. And there'll be boards there kind of showing different types of skate park program elements that people can comment and ask questions about.
I think this is a great opportunity for us that do not know anything about skate parks to go there and see what they're talking about. And
This is really exciting, Sam. Thank you for presenting this to us. We appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you.
May I have two questions?
Yes, sir.
What's the time of the steering committee meeting on the 23rd?
I'm going to send out a poll tomorrow. It's not the day of the 23rd. That's kind of the week we're going to target. I'm going to send out a poll to that group because there's about 8 to 10 people we've got to get together for that, just to see when they can meet, and then we'll schedule an official time for that.
Yeah, I think I heard you say that there had been a meeting. Has there been a second meeting with the United Methodist Church people or the Lewis Foundation?
No,
So you're talking about the meeting that we held here.
correct.
So there's been no other communication with them.
With City Manager Johnson, there has been. She, I think basically they have had a little bit of back and forth on what the lease currently is and kind of what the process would be if we were to modify that, but we have not had a formal meeting with them.
Right. He came to me after that meeting and said that if we would just have to go up through the chain of their, so that's the meeting. he's
That
referring to.
is if the lease extended beyond the 1 year.
Right, if it goes beyond 1 year, And if we want to do any improvements like the parking lot,
Uh-huh.
it has to go up the chain. And so I was waiting for for us to get started and get a more defined so I could give them more defined information of what part we're talking about.
Would it help if we wrote a letter to the Lewis asking for a meeting?
Well,
Or-
he did ask me to write a letter telling them exactly what we wanted.
So can we anticipate that happening sometime in the
I
short
think after
future?
we have our steering committee meeting and make sure that they're good with the design that we're presenting.
That's fine. Thank you. The only thing I'd say, Sam, and you heard it before, I think we're behind schedule. And I think there are other kind of, in terms of when we did the interviews, where we are. So I hope that everything would be done to cause this to happen on the concept or the premises you said tonight, or if we can expedite it any. And that's not to get a second-class facility, but like I said, I think we're behind on what was told, suggested during the interviews. So thank you for your presentation tonight.
Yep, you're welcome. Anything else?
Thank you, sir.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you.
Which brings us to number 2, consideration to adopt Chapman Technical Group's building guidelines for the TIF district. Madam Manager, City Manager.
We have Joe Bird from Chapman Technical Group to present the guidelines that the committee has gone over and recommend to council.
So just a little bit of background. We've been working on this for a few months now. And I guess the impetus of this is talking about the buildings in Oak Hill. Some really good, significant architectural buildings in Oak Hill. But over time, you know, some of the buildings have gotten a little tired, maybe need to be refreshed. Over time, some of the buildings have been renovated, which when they were renovated at the time, maybe they were good additions to downtown. But some of the things that have happened is, as these renovations were made, as buildings get tired, you start to lose some of the original character of the buildings. And the reason that's important is not just because Oak Hill wants to have a pretty downtown, which it does, but if you think about the recreation and the tourism industry that have been growing in the region, and the desire to attract people to Oak Hill to see what Oak Hill has to offer, you need to make sure that you do the best you can, put your best foot forward so that people come into Oak Hill and find it a nice place to visit, a nice place to spend money, a nice place to have lunch. As all these things start to happen, that's good for Oak Hill, that's good for businesses, it's good for property values and so on. So there's a real value to doing that, as opposed, and in addition to just creating a nice downtown. So I'll give you guys, everybody, a copy of this. We've put together a comprehensive booklet that outlines some of the things that we think ought to be done. And at this point, these are just suggestions. It's up to the city to determine what to do with these suggestions, which building owners can take and maybe take steps towards reestablishing that character of downtown. And so we've got a lot of things that we've looked at, and I won't read all these slides to you, but as you know, there's some basic architectural principles that we talk about. There's the storefronts. Obviously, you know what a storefront is, the windows over top the storefront, transom windows, some of the detailing of the buildings themselves, and what building owners can do to reestablish that character that visitors find so attractive. We looked at a lot of different things, and again, all of this is in the book, and I'll let you take a look at it. But we looked at things like signage. How can we improve signage? There's a great variety of signage in downtown. We looked at things like canopies. the awnings that come out over buildings and or sidewalks, and some of them in downtown Oak Hill right now are very good. Some need some improvements. So we're trying to provide some guidelines to building owners and business owners as to what they could do. And these aren't, and I'll show you some sketches that we developed too. And these aren't what has to be done. There are just things that kind of start the conversation and guide people in the right direction. We looked at things like building colors. And then we looked at, just to give you some examples of what we've done. And here's an example of a building we thought was a really good example. The building on the left that you see, it was recently renovated, nice storefront, nice colors, preserved the detailing, the original detailing of the building itself. And it's just a nice, interesting building. So it doesn't take a lot. It's just kind of paying attention to what's there and working with it. So with that said, one of the big things that we did is take a look at several buildings and say, okay, what can we do for some of these buildings? And again, not every building in downtown Oak Hill has been sketched up, but this kind of is a springboard to start thinking about things that could be done. So one of the first ones we looked at is this one at 133 Main Street, and we're mainly looking at the canopy here, and we've got a pretty substantial canopy with different materials, and we said, okay, what can we do? And start talking about canopy options. One would be to replace the canopy with what we're calling a low profile canopy. And you see that white horizontal line, that's actually a flat canopy that would be suspended out from the building. So that's one option. Another option would be just a different canopy that's more uniform. It could be fabric, it could be metal, but it provides a better look for the entire building. At 102 and 104 Main, those two storefronts are actually one building. So we looked at that, and again, what we call a cheese grater, the metal facade on the building on the corner was put on, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 years ago. And at the time was probably a good addition, but it has taken away from the original character of the building. The building to the left of it likewise has some facade work that takes away from the original character. So we looked at some of the original or historic photographs to try to determine what that building looked like, and it was more something like this. And so you peel off the facades that were added, and you start to reveal some of the original brick detail. So we're looking at things like that as suggestions that the building owners could do with the buildings. We have some that are a little more challenging. The one on the right is, as you can see, it's had some originally had some interesting architectural detailing at the top. And then at some point, that third floor was added. And so it's kind of a real mishmash of styles there. Presents a little challenge. But again, if you start to think about simple things like colors and cleaning and so on, and signage, you can come up with something that's starts to restore some of that original character. Some of the buildings, again, are just kind of tired and maybe need a little bit of updates. So simple things like coordinated awnings and color coordination, maybe some signage improvements, and you get something like that. Great building here, this old stone building. And again, over time, additions and renovations have kind of taken away from the original character of their building. So we're suggesting just do some color coordination, maybe restore some of the facades a little bit, reemphasize those spaces above the storefront, not necessarily with windows, but with coordinated transom treatments. Some of the buildings are detached from contiguous city blocks and give you the opportunity to do things a little bit more creatively, maybe something like that. Again, these are just suggestions, and building owners, business owners can work together. And as they review the guidelines in the book, they'll see what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, even as far as colors of buildings. And one of the last ones we did is this building, which again, just a little tired, just needs a little refreshing, a little color coordination, signage coordination. You can have something like that. So that is essentially what we have. And give everyone a copy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Burke.
Exactly right.
Really good if you brought that.
This has been reviewed by the committee that's kind of steered us in this project. And I think we're to the point that we crossed the Ts and dotted the Is, and I'm certainly willing to listen to further comments, but Demita, I don't know if this is the final presentation of what we're looking for at this point in this meeting.
This is, we'd like to have council's approval and then for us to present at the merchant or business owners meeting on the 19th of January.
So moved.
I'll second.
And properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we vote the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion's agreed to 6-0.
So Joe, you will be there at the meeting that the meeting's talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is a great tool.
Yes.
Yes.
for
Thank you
us
for
to
the colors.
use.
Yes, thank you.
That was some Marshall Green.
There is some green. You can call it Marshall. That's close enough.
Mr. Byrd, the cover you have, this picture of Oak Hill downtown, was that from a postcard?
I think so. That's one I found on the internet.
Because I remember when I was in the third grade, we had to have a picture put on front of our spelling binder. My mother brought me this very same picture home and I glued it on there. So that's the first time I've seen it in a long time. I remember that picture quite well. Yes, it is. Which brings us to number 3, consideration to adopt a resolution for the city to demolish the structure located at 301 Bond Avenue, map 16, parcel 16, owned by Cody and Sarah Donnelly.
Mayor, question. Can we take 3 and 4 collectively since they state the same necessity?
Without objection, we take them both. Which number 4, consideration to adopt a resolution for the city to demolish the structure located at 94 High Street, map 4, parcel 90, owned by Celia Puryear.
So
Yes.
move.
You have any comments first?
No, I just wanted to let you know that we'll have this order to demolish, but we won't actually go to bid on these until after we get approval from the grant through the DEP.
Gotcha.
So you might not see any action on this for a little bit.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, we vote the motion. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion is agreed to 6-0. Which brings us to number 5, discussion on moving municipal election to the county election.
Mayor, I'd like to move that we table this motion until such time that the city attorney and the city manager could clarify through the Secretary of State's office certain questions and issues that have come up regarding this, such as the 3-year term versus the 5 and what's required.
Is there a second to his?
Second.
Properly moved and seconded to table this motion, this action, any discussion? Hearing none, we vote the motion. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. Motion's agreed to 6-0. Table that to a later time. Brings us to number 6, review of Oak Hill Municipal Code 11.16 vacant rental or commercial property. City manager.
This is the ordinance that Mr. File has reviewed. And I believe that his opinion is, he's here tonight, he can tell us that we have the code. We just need to be able to enforce it.
That's
Thank
correct.
you.
I believe City of Oak Hill has sufficient ordinances on their books, on its books that will take care of these issues. They do need to be strictly enforced in order to do so. And so I don't know that it's necessary at this stage to enact an additional ordinance.
So it's my understanding that the reason this was viewed reviewed, we had a citizen cite a particular code that would perhaps give us more teeth to police our structures and so forth. So it's your advisory opinion that our present code would suffice.
Yes, we need to see how a present code works if it's being strictly enforced. We can always come back and amend the present code if we find that it's necessary.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we employ a full-time structural enforcement person effective July 1. Because it's my understanding also that Montgomery and other cities have this. And you talked about enforcement. It's my understanding that that probably may be one of the necessities to further codify this ordinance. Is that correct?
That's certainly possible.
Which means July 1, we would have a full-time enforcement person plus a half-time person. And I would move that we move ahead with that effective July 1.
Is there a second?
To me, do we have enough in the budget to allow for that?
Mayor, discussion should come after a second.
Is there a second? Yes, sir. There's no second. All right. With no second, the motion dies. So I guess you could answer it. Is there money to
Yeah.
pay for a person, I guess?
I believe there will be, and we'll get into that more during our budget, when we start having our budget sessions.
Brings us to new business, review of street parking on Central Avenue. Madam City Manager?
The safety committee has looked at this part of Central Avenue. We had a request from a property owner, which is Mr. Hilton, to limit the parking in front of his building. He was concerned about safety from having parking on both sides of the street. So he's asked to limit the parking in front of his building to 15 minutes for loading and unloading if someone's moving in or moving out. He has parking in the rear of his building that his tenants can use. So that would eliminate the parking on that side of the street. There's parking on the left-hand side as you're looking at that, there's parking on the left-hand side, which gives them plenty of parking if they don't park behind the building. Mr. Ray is here and he would like to leave the parking in front of his building. It does get wider in that area. So it's still not too much of a safety concern down in front of his building.
All right.
So which building are we specifically talking about?
The one with the red,
Okay.
the brick with
Okay.
the red
Okay.
roof.
Little house between those two.
And he wants what, 15?
15
minutes.
minutes. I think there's about 2 spaces.
And it's an apartment. That's apartments right there, right?
Those are apartments, right?
Oh, no.
So what
There's
motion?
no one.
Mayor, I'd like
parked
to make a
there.
motion.
Yes.
I move that we remove parking on the right-hand side. And that is being made, well, at the appropriate time, I'd like to address my motion if I get a second. And that has no 15-minute sign with it. And again, I would clarify that this was brought to the attention of councilman by Mr. Hilton. That it wasn't something that we dreamed of. But at the appropriate time, I'd like to address the motion if I get a second.
Or second?
Striking that.
What's your motion again?
That we remove parking on the right side of the street. Approximately, that would be approximately 114 feet. I'll give you a map here. Go down this and measuring.
Now he can move. But he can't do a budget. So is this additional property, Mr. Perry, or what Mr. Hilton was asking for?
Mayor, unanimous consent.
Yes.
Okay, again, the idea or the suggestion came from Mr. Hilton. I talked to Mr. Hilton afterwards. I've talked to Mr. Ray afterwards. And we discussed some of the concerns. And the idea of the 15-minute unloading zone was discussed. And it was discussed in terms of enforcement. And of course, at that time, it indicated that the police department could do this, which I'd say in order to do that, you'd have to have a full-time officer there. So as I said, as well, I talked to the fire chief, who indicated this could be a potential public safety hazard, that we were probably lucky that a fire truck had not hit a car because of the curved area there, and or a car hit a fire truck. Secondly, it would create an efficient traffic flow, and it would create an uninterrupted snow removal process. It's my understanding that perhaps the 15 minutes had been previously discussed prior to our conversation with the chief. But as I said, the map clearly indicates from the rock wall down within 5 feet of the corner of Park Street would be 114 feet of parking. It's 6 feet to walk across the street to park on the other side of the street. There's an equal number of spaces on the opposite side of the street as there is in front of the apartment, the White House, and Mr. Ray's gray apartments. From the middle of the steps on the lower end of Mr. Ray's apartment, it's 19 feet to the corner of Park Street, which means those persons come and walk around the corner, park and load their groceries, or whatever else they need to do, or move furniture into their building. So there's 38 feet on the right side, right by the gray apartment complex belongs to Joe Ray. There's one space with a carport directly behind the gray apartment building. If you go to King Avenue, behind the Hilton apartment building, there's a parking lot of 50 feet wide, 50 foot deep, which would provide adequate parking for any of the residents. And there appears to be only 6 meters there, which means 6 apartments on the back of the building. And I have been by there at night late. I've been by there early in the morning late, and I've been there in midday. And I have yet to see a car parked in the parking lot behind the facility. So I think in terms of future, I think in terms of efficiency, if you get cut into the red light and you come all the way down, there's no parking until you get to the end of the block wall. And if I'm estimating correctly, because there are no parking spaces marked off, it would appear there's probably 4 parking spaces from the wall to within 5 feet of the end of Central, where it's painted yellow and yellow along the block wall. So, my personal opinion is that there's adequate parking across the street and behind the building and along Park Street. I also would propose that if this is adopted, that we would put no parking on the left-hand side of Park Street, which clearly adds or allows plenty of parking, closed parking for unload. And it's even safer to unload groceries or whatever on Park Street and in the parking lot that's been constructed. So again, I think in the interest of public safety, public interest, efficiency, and so forth, and the genesis of the proposal didn't come from council, it came from a landowner.
Motion been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, properly moved and second. Any more discussion?
I have-
Go ahead. I just want to know, how many times have we got to vote on this? Once or twice?
Once.
Oh, it's one time. Okay.
So how many feet of parking are we intending to remove from the front of Joe Ray's property? Because he's not,
Uh,
that wasn't an issue. what I
From-
understood.
Well, the entire area is free up for public safety. It's 114 feet from the block wall down to the 5 feet yellow line.
And his building is the gray building.
His building's the last building is identified. His building's the last,
So how
and the
many-
house.
Okay, so how many footage of, is that one car length that we're taking from in front of his property if we pass this?
Again, in identifying what is not marked. It appears to be 4 spaces from the rock wall down to within 5-6 feet of the corner of Park Street.
You only have one space behind that building, right? So there's not, like, on this map, there's only one space.
Which, Councilman, again, there would be adequate parking on
I
the,
understand what you're saying, Mr.
Okay,
Perry, but
and
I'm
across the
asking
street.
Mr. Ray questions.
I'm sorry. I apologize to you.
Do
So-
you feel like if we enforce this or we change this, that that would change things for your residents?
I think it would. I know the house is too in front there.
So I don't understand why we can't just stop where Mr. Hilton's properties stop and leave Mr. Ray's properties alone. Chief Richardson, would that be an issue if we did that?
Well, if you listen to the recommendation, city manager, our committee, three parts of the chief, myself, we recommended to stop, to have no parking to the end of Mr. Hilton's structure.
Okay,
That street does widen out there. There is parking behind Mr. Gray's house for consideration.
Hmm.
But we recommended that the no parking stop at the end of Mr. Hilton's and allow parking at the house and the corner structure.
Right there.
With a loading and unloading.
okay. So that would be leaving the parking in front of Mr. Ray properties alone.
And we discussed the thought of, we recommend that, we see it needs to be changed beyond that.
Okay,
So could we amend the motion?
that's what I
Chief.
was just thinking.
I have a question.
Would you want to do that?
I have a question.
If you want to amend.
So how, did you all also come with a recommendation on how that 15-minute would be enforced? And who would enforce it? Chief? I see a lot of sidewalk parking and a lot of 2-hour zones and everything else not being enforced.
The property owner, we often discussed with him,
I discussed it
and
too.
told him he would be, it'd be his.
Between him and his tenant, he agreed that whether it be written in or lease or, and that he would help police his tenant. Now, his concern was he couldn't police
Others.
Mr. Ray's tenant from parking up there. If they did, I don't think they do. But he agreed to help police
Would you,
in turn.
would you agree if you do Park Street and across the street and the lots that are available, that there's adequate parking and it probably is safer than cars stopping on that corner and around the curve?
I
Or
think
have you
there's
had an
adequate
opportunity to
parking
look at
the way it is now.
I don't
I
think,
don't know how many, the way it is now,
uh-huh.
it's never been an issue. It does get tight there. I come up through there half a dozen times a day and I usually stop and alternate with traffic. I understand that the fire truck can't stop, police car can. The fire department's issue isn't necessarily where Mr. Ray's apartment building is, but as it comes on up the street, it narrows.
Right.
Like the Mr. Hill.
Right.
And also I'd add Mr.
And the
Hilton added
curve.
that probably it could be moved across the street and part in the bank removed that belongs to the Methodist church. And I understand Mr. Kirk looked at it and it was cost prohibitive.
Well, you know. once
To
you
build
start
an
removing dirt,
impoundment
you're gonna
bank.
put a retaining wall to hold it back. And then getting permission from the Methodist church to dig out their property.
Yeah. So that's my motion, absence of 15-minute enforcement zone.
All right, you've heard the motion. Any more discussion?
Did we amend it
There
to
was a
stop?
second to the motion.
There was a second.
We need to vote on that motion, then can we come back and amend the motion?
I think you vote on the amendment first,
Yes.
but I don't think there is any amendment.
Okay, I'd
think
like to make a
Chris
motion to amend that we just restrict parking on the right-hand side in front of Mr. Hilton's properties.
All right, so there's the amendment.
I'll second.
All right, we have an amendment to the original motion.
And I would amend the amendment to the second power, which means that enforcement would become the responsibility of the landlord who would write it into his lease. And at such time it is not being adhered to, the sign would be removed.
So you're amending the amendment.
Yes,
Do we not need to vote on the first amendment?
no, it's a second amendment, the amendment to the second power.
Okay.
Wouldn't it be easier just to start over with a brand new one?
No, just
Yeah.
handle the amendments.
All right, we have the first amendment. Or is that the second amendment?
The
It's
one I
the
made
first- the
would be
second amendment.
All right, we'll start with Councilwoman Hodges's amendment. And would you restate it?
That we solely restrict parking on the right-hand side of the street in front of Mr. Hilton's properties, whatever those addresses may be.
All right, we have that. All right,
So go ahead.
any more discussion? I hope not.
One more thing. So
Okay.
we're not putting the 15-minute sign up there.
That's,
Yes.
that's
No.
later. That's the next one.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah, that's the next one.
okay.
The next one is to put the sign down.
Oh.
That's the next one.
Oh,
Which you
That's the
should have
next-
voted the second one.
all right.
first, Then the other,
But it's all
okay.
included in one. Okay, go ahead.
which fit the stipulations with it of enforcement and removal.
All right. Just tell me when to vote for.
Just what?
All right, let's do the amendment. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. All right, that amendment has been approved. Now, Mr. Perry's amendment is next.
Yes.
Did we have a second on that?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did.
Yes, she did. Mr. Perry, would you restate it?
That the amendment stipulates that the sign placed would become the enforcement responsibility written into the lien of the landlords, written into the liens of the occupants, to be enforced by the landlord. And at such time that it wasn't, or it became a public nuisance, that it would be removed.
You mean lien or lease?
The 15-minute sign,
I mean, you said written into their lien. You mean talking about their
Lease,
lease, yes.
sorry.
Okay, sorry, lease. All right. You all heard that.
I have I have one question about that. Legally, can we tell the landlord what to write in their lease? Because I'm not sure we can tell them to enforce that in their.
I understood someone said that he had agreed to it.
Oh, okay,
He agreed to the enforcement internally with his tenant.
okay. But if he decides not to, I don't think the city can enforce that with,
Right, I
Like
don't
his
think we
lease.
could take it away because his tenants aren't doing it.
okay.
No, then Perry's saying, bring it back and redo it, right?
You're away with the parking period.
Do away with that part.
I'm in, okay. I got it now. I was just wondering.
All right, was there a second to that one? I've lost track.
Yes,
Was there-
Duncan. Duncan.
Oh, you,
I'll second that one.
all right, good,
That
good.
there was
All right, we-
discussion before the second, so I totally.
So, Diane calling me out.
See, that's the one.
All
I was
right.
asking him.
We now have the second amendment. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any more discussion to that one?
Okay, I just want clarification. We're asking that the tenant, that the landlord write that into his lease. If he's not enforcing it, then the signs would be taken up and it would be brought back to us.
Yes,
Have to be brought back to you first
Yes.
before the sign is taken down.
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Okay, so it'll have to be brought back to us before the signs are removed, correct? Okay. Thank you.
All right. We'll now vote the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The amendment to the amendment to the amendment has been approved.
Let me understand. Krista, you seconded his motion?
No, Benita said.
Benita's okay. Thank you.
Mayor,
If she can, she deserves a raise. All right. Is there a vote on the original motion or just the amendments were enough?
no.
What's that?
I don't think that-
No, I don't think we voted on the original. I think we voted on two amendments.
Two amendments.
So the
Still need to
original
vote for
motion
those.
was made by Mr. Perry, which was amended and amended,
Right.
has not been voted on.
Okay.
So now we're back to the original.
Okay.
And what was that?
That we-
My
there's
motion
no
was that
parking.
we prohibited parking 114 feet from the rock wall to within 6 feet of the corner of Park Street. And then it was amended to place the sign there. And then it was amended to stipulate that the owner would place it in his lien and it would come back to council at such time that wasn't being adhered to.
And so didn't the amendment change the distance?
Yeah, it changed that too.
Yes.
Yeah, yours did. Yeah.
Yes. We're voting on the, Mr. Perry's motion with the amendments.
There you go.
There we go. Now, is there a motion and second on that on
I
his?
think, I
Yes.
think I second.
I think you did, Mr. Hazlett.
It's been a while, but for sure.
If not, Mr. Hazlett, we'll say you did. Thank you.
I second it.
All right, been properly moved and seconded and talked a good bit. We'll now vote the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion's agreed to. We now move to number 8, which I sure hope it's better than number 7. Consideration of acceptance of property at Appalachian Drive for a welcome to Oak Hill sign.
The property owner, I will let Mr. Perry talk about this, because he's the one that has made the contacts, but the property owner of this piece of property has agreed to donate us a parcel to put a welcome to Oak Hill sign that the beautification committee is working on, and I'm not sure what the requirements are for that, so
How
I'll
big is the
turn that
parcel?
to Mr. Perry. I'm sorry. He's not the-
I move that we accept the property at Appalachian Drive for a welcome Oak Hill sign, which was visited by Mr. Smallwood, Mr. Lively, and Miss Lively on a rainy Saturday morning with the following stipulations. The acceptance of the city of the private with the understanding about 20 by 30. With the acceptance of the city of the private street would be under the following conditions. Not exclusively though, as there may be other conditions, not that adequate drainage is in place throughout the entire road area to be adopted. The road is properly repaired and brought to a like new serviceable condition to include proper repair of road base in currently deteriorated areas in accordance with West Virginia DOH standards and best practices for road construction. Any and all underground utilities must be installed to adjacent lots prior to road repair and adoption. Any adoption of the road is not to include the existing private sewer infrastructure, including any manholes, pump stations, or sewer lines. And that is a basis, a stipulation on which he would give the property if we accepted the street into the city. And my motion includes those stipulations before it would be taken into the city street department. And just generally, it has to be brought up to standards before we accept. It has to be repaired and serviceable along with lines and sewers and so forth. So that's part of the motion. And it was agreed to, like I said, the committee felt, we heard before they couldn't find a northern area. We have the southern and profile, it's there. They liked the committee, the beautification committee, and Mr. Bowling offered it 20 by 30.
Is there a second?
with the stipulation.
Properly moved and second. Any more discussion?
Yes, I have
Yes.
some questions.
I
Go
have a
ahead.
question.
Yes. So after they bring it up to code, then it's then the city's responsibility to keep it up after that.
It would be voted to bring it into the city street system. Which all that property out there is in the city. New River Clinic, all that. And the proposal being suggested, you've seen the sign for the Mexican place. There's a proposal for a hotel. There's a proposal for a 7-Eleven. So, you know, we can encourage business, we can facilitate business, or we can vote against it.
Where would this,
Economic.
where would this street stop? Is it gonna go all the way across the property?
It would begin right there at the beginning on the left,
Mhm.
okay, where the area was lotted off by one of the committees and would end right there to Comfort it. So I don't know, and I didn't take time to go out and measure that.
Do we have a price tag on this
For what?
for taking care of that road? Do we know what it will cost
It
to
won't
maintain?
require any taken care of. Because before we would accept it, it has to be up to grade and up to DOH standards and as well drainage.
I mean, the property owner is gonna bring it up to,
Yes, yes, that's the stipulation before we would accept it. If you'd like for me to read those. again, I'll
So
be
he's
happy
gonna
to.
he's gonna do the sewer utilities, he's gonna pave it. Put all the stuff under it.
That must all be fulfilled, dealt with, completed prior to accepting that strip into the city street system.
and we're talking, show me where we're talking about
So-
the section
Currently, it's not in the city.
where it says new business?
No, it's not.
Right there, back.
Okay, all the way to where? So that section, he's saying, you're saying he agreed to bring it up to,
Yes,
so what about the curve? That's not part of this?
where you're going beyond the Comfort Inn. Right,
Point of order.
Mayor.
All right.
Well, I'm not clear. I mean, do we already own that? Is it
No,
in the city?
it's not in the city system.
And they're gonna do all the work for free?
That is part of the agreement.
For a 20 by
That-
30 piece of property.
If we accept it, we would take it into the city once it is upgraded and brought up to standards.
Who's gonna do who does the inspection of it to make sure it's standard?
That's a great
I'm wondering, 'cause that can mean a lot of
Well,
things.
the motion says it has to be Department of Highways, and then I would presume that Mr. Kirk would be part of that.
Cause they could come in there and lay
yeah.
down an inch of asphalt over
right.
top of
Yeah.
it, and then in a
But
year,
it
it's full
says-
potholes
Right,
again.
so they
Department
do
of
all
Hi-
that work and then.
It says
they
Department of
come back and
Highway
say,
Standards.
"Great, hey, then we can vote to take it in."
The motion says it would be brought up to Department of Highway Standards.
Is there no other property that we
As
can
far as-
acquire for?
We need to
sign?
know how many feet that we're talking about, Krista, before we would know how much it's gonna cost in the future for us to repave it.
Oh, I
if we'd have
agree.
to.
Yeah, we need a price tag on this to be able to put the sign.
Well,
Right.
how long would it be before you repay?
Yeah, and it
Once
may
it was
not,
brought up to,
yeah, you may not need to touch it
Right.
for 10 years.
They don't do the drainage. It ain't gonna last you 5
and
years.
drainage was part of the
I
motion.
mean, that's the problem now. We've got
Yeah.
drainage.
Yeah,
in the area.
and drainage was
Water
part of the
drainage.
motion. And how many of us sitting here have repeatedly heard complaints over that egress on that particular street?
True.
So it's
And
an
the thing about
opportunity.
it is, it's privately owned property. Not
You're
going
talking about the
against
street.
the road,
Yes,
you know, the mall, the people who built the clinic out there. Those people should have spent some money fixing that road because their patients travel in there.
really don't have anything to do with us
Well, the clinic did,
on their part,
yes,
but they didn't fix the road coming in.
it doesn't belong to us. You said that.
But it's coming into the.
Well, you know, the bottom line is this. The beautification committee has looked for a place in the north end of town. He has extended two possible sites. And we discussed accepting it contingent upon, of course, with our council vote, with an upgrade to the road, which again can't do anything but enhance all of the property.
I think that could potentially be a hefty price tag.
Well, if he's willing to pay $300,000 for us to accept, to put a sign on his
The
yard,
deed to us, 20 by 30.
and he's gonna spend $300,000 probably dollars to do that. Okay, well,
That's a no-brainer.
then we
Is he
consider
gonna give us
doing
the
that.
property he's gonna wait, he's not gonna give us the property until we accept the street.
And it would have to be brought up to the specs.
Okay.
How long is that road that we have to incorporate into the city?
As I said, I didn't take the time to go out and measure it. You have a guesstimate, Mr. Kirk. It starts where those vacant lots are, where you see the Mexican restaurant sign coming.
Mhm,
Two lots
That's right
beside,
there.
up to the Comfort Inn,
mhm.
if that.
So from the Comfort Inn down, whose responsibility is that right now?
The owners. Well, I wouldn't know.
Okay,
Tyler.
we're good. I get what you're saying.
Probably Tyler.
believe that portion, as you get up closer, is in Department of Highway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They have the.
Because it's falling apart too in front of the
Yeah.
Comfort
Yeah, it's-
Inn.
right.
Terrible.
So I wonder how far down that road department highway.
We've got a map somewhere that shows where that defining line is.
So we got the motion on the table to vote.
So to be clear, our city limits ends there at the Kmart light, or where's it in?
It's always city limits.
So.
Yeah.
Okay.
That road's just privately owned.
Fundamentally, it's Appalachian Drive, isn't it? Fundamentally, it's Appalachian Drive, and that, and extend to Appalachian Drive.
Yes.
And then the Fed not.
Mayor, can we table this until we have a idea of the footage of that road so that we can have a better idea?
Well, we already have a
Call.
motion on the floor, has been properly moved and seconded. Mr. Perry's motion. Mr. Smallwood seconded it. So I guess we have to, let the vote on that, wouldn't we, Mr.?
Yeah. Voted up or down.
Yeah. But it was made after, there's already a motion sitting here on the floor already. I will vote on that, don't we? Yeah. All right, we'll have to vote on Mr. Perry's motion first. And if it doesn't pass, then we can table. If it does pass, then I guess we can go back and try to table again. All right. The clerk will call the roll, please.
Councilmember Diana Janey,
No,
Councilmember Krista Hodges,
No,
Councilmember David Perry,
Yes.
Councilmember Charles Smallwood Jr.,
Yes.
Councilmember Benitez Jackson,
No.
Councilmember Steve Hazlett,
No.
4-2, sir.
The motion is not agreed to, a vote of 4-2. Now, you say there's another motion?
Yes, another piece of property that is right beyond the sign out there that says Kroger and so forth. And he has agreed to deed that to the city in exchange for snow removal, period. And in my humble opinion, it would be good to the city for two reasons: to take this property and with the same stipulations that I put in the first motion, to one, rent that area for signage or sell that area for signage, which would be a profit or money to the city.
All right, Chair, Mr. Perry's motion. Is there a second? Hearing no second, the motion.
I'll second that.
All right, back up. It has properly moved and seconded. Any
So,
discussion?
yes, I do have some questions. What would be, what's known, first of all, what piece of property are we talking about? Are we talking about for the second sign location?
I just described it for you.
I'd like to
I'll
see it on the
show you.
map. That would be great. Thank you.
You know,
Tyler said he would.
Thank you, Tyler.
So the same person has two
Yes,
places?
yes.
Mhm.
So how's he financially gonna gain from this if he's doing all
Because
the?
we're gonna do snow removal. for him.
Because it enhances the property to the potential buyers or leases. He really doesn't want to sell it. He wants to lease it, like to a hotel chain or 7-Eleven, which is engaged in discussions with those people now. But again, my general premise is we need to do any and everything we can to support business and encourage business. We talked about giving tax breaks. We've talked about streetscape. But then we want to,
This is the location of the second sign.
This is a piece of property that Mr. Perry
Okay,
mentioned.
so what snow removal would he want the city to be responsible for? From what section to where? Are we talking about the entire property? I'm
the
not clear.
discussion was in front of that lot.
So just snow removal and that small section right there.
With the same stipulations that Mr. Kirk mentioned as far as drainage, properly repaired.
For that section right there?
Any and all underground utility must be installed adjacent to lots, or adjacent to lot, prior to road repair and adoption. Any adoption of the road is not to include the existing private sewer infrastructure, any manhole, pump stations, or sewer lines. Because I think all of that runs on the right side, correct? The pump station and all that runs up that right side.
So the city would just be responsible for snow removal in front of the lot that we would be putting the sign on, is what you're saying?
That's my understanding, yes.
Mr. Kirk, since we would be asking your guys to do that, would you weigh in, please? Is it possible to do snow removal for just that small of a section?
Well, I said, you want to do that, why aren't you gonna do it all? You know what I mean? That's the, if you're gonna make a trip out there, I mean, it's hard to go out there and go from this little section, put snow. And say, and then they're gonna say, well, why didn't you do the hauling?
So our guys would feel trapped.
There's no place to put the snow. Like you
Okay.
put it back up on private property.
That's ignorant.
And if I go the other way with it, it's just gonna be over on private property, unless we take the whole road in.
You wouldn't push it to the state. I mean, pushing it that way.
We
where
plow
Tyler
to
said,
the right. You go up one side, you plow to the right. When you go down the other side, you plow to the right.
where are we putting those presently when we do other city streets?
Plow to the right.
Right with it, something like that.
Everything's plowed to the right.
Okay.
Can't plow to the other way, we'll be in the center of the road.
Okay. Mayor, I move the previous question.
Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Diana Janey,
I'm gonna say no.
Krista Hodges.
No,
David Perry,
Yes,
Charles Smallwood Jr.
No.
Benitez Jackson,
yes,
Steve Hazlett,
No.
4-2, sir.
The motion's not agreed to, 4-2.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
can I make a motion?
Why
that we
not?
Consider, that we consider the first piece of property only after we have more detail on the length of the street that we would be responsible for upkeep. And we could get with Mr. Kirk and get an estimate of what it was going to cost down the road to replace it. And then we can revisit it next month.
I'll second that.
Been a motion that we revisit the first signs of what you're talking about, the very first one. And revisit it next month after consultation with some of the people who may be involved in its upkeep.
We get an estimate on what it's going to cost for
All right.
paving, upkeep.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The motion's agreed to, 6-0. Number 9, Charter Ordinance Review Committee's recommendation to amend the charter. Madam City Manager.
These are items that will all require individual motions. So can we start back at the first one? I think it's 11. Yes, thank you. Okay, this change, if you can see that we changed the name of it to appointments.
Is everybody okay?
Okay, so it's, we changed the title to appointments or removal of personnel. And then deleted that whole section that talked about hiring. And for council not to interfere with hiring or firing of anyone. And then added all the new, this is a little different from what you had in your packet, because we did do the deletion. So it says, the city manager will advertise all vacancies for a period of time that he or she deems appropriate for the position being advertised, that the city manager will conduct the interviews with the head of the department in which the vacancy occurs. And then the city manager will make a recommendation for hiring to council, and council may approve or disapprove the recommendation. If the recommendation is not approved, the hiring process then starts over. And the city manager may terminate the employment of any employee working for the city, except those appointed by council. And then either the employee or the city manager can ask for a hearing before council for a final determination within 7 days.
This is one motion for all of these.
One motion for this section of the charter.
Demita, I think, and Krista can bear this out, and I think Mr. Jackson brought this up at one point before we got into this, that the advertisement would be for a specific period of time, like 5 days or 7 or 8,
We can,
2 weeks.
2 weeks. I mean, wasn't that in the committee's recommendation?
I was not there, Mr. Gill was.
Oh, okay.
and he's already
I
gone.
didn't have anything written in my notes for it to be a certain period of time.
Because I would hate.
But I
for-
mean, this is the time to change it.
Again, it's my
If you-
understanding, having been in protocol, that if you establish a precedent in terms of job application step, it must be consistent. And this basically is either open-ended.
Okay, so we can change that to whatever.
Like a 2-week period of time.
And you got what deems appropriate, what do you think's appropriate?
Well, sometimes 2 weeks is too long, depending on what position and how quickly you need it. And the cost. So,
Okay.
I mean, if you do it once a week for 2 weeks, that's fine, I
What would
think.
you prefer? 5
Well,
days?
I prefer what's on there, but probably
I think we need to be consistent as well.
Usually what we do is we'll put it in the Fayette Tribune for one time, and then the Beckley newspaper for one time for 2 weeks.
I make a motion, we accept it as presented by the city manager from the committee.
All right, you heard the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I do have some. I do have an issue with are we just talking about the first line? Or are we talking about the entire order?
Talking about 11.
Okay,
Just this one.
the city manager, if you deem somebody and you bring their name to us, how does that not make it political if the majority of this body says no, because that person may be a Republican or a Democrat, they don't want there. So I have an issue with that being in there because it should be your decision, not for us to decide.
Which part is that?
Where it says the city manager will make a recommendation for hiring to council and council may approve or disapprove the recommendation. That should not be our place to tell you who to hire that best suits your office.
Is that all hire? I mean, with all hires?
Yes.
With the exception of ones identified as will and pleasure employees.
It's all the policemen,
Right.
chief of police, city
City manager.
clerk.
I think that makes your ability to staff this office a political thing and not who you feel like is best for that position, in my opinion.
I have to agree with that.
You know,
Were you in it? You weren't in?
I
you were
wasn't there for
night?
that meeting. But
Oh, the thing. It was me and you
I was
and
there.
Chris and
Mm,
Mr. Perry.
that's
and
my
it was
opinion.
unanimous at that time. And as far as making it political or using that statement, it couldn't be any less or more political for certain council members going to the city manager and asking them to reverse a decision of the building inspector or an employee or whatever. If someone wants to abuse their position, that can happen. But in terms of what is common practice in state government, boards of education, colleges and universities, this is government entities. And in terms of the council, I would hope and trust that the council would want to have more oversight or more participation in the process. Since if we're sued by an employee, then you're going to be named. So in essence, you support your city manager or you don't, because you may know something that she doesn't know relevant to employment.
Like anybody could make up anything about an employee she brings to the table because they
And
don't
that
like
happens
them.
on, you're right, that happens on Facebook.
A lot of
among
things
other
happen,
places.
lots of places.
But anyway, again, it's common practice in government. Universities, schools, boards of education for this process. It was discussed, it was unanimously agreed. And if I'm in error, I'm sure the meeting at some point, she was, I don't know what adjective you used, was in agreement or support and felt it would be beneficial to the process. And I think you get a better interview, you get a better advertisement, you get a better potential candidate than we've done. Anyway, that's it. Move to the previous question.
All right. The clerk will call the roll.
Diana Janey. Diana Janey.
They voted on it. And that's what they felt strongly about. Yes.
Krista Hodges.
No,
David Perry.
Yes.
Carl Smallwood Jr.
Yes.
Benitez Jackson.
Yes.
Steve Hazlett.
Yes.
The motion is agreed to 5-1. All right, you have more?
Yes. this is refers to the same sort of thing, powers and duties of the city manager. It outlines the duties, the changes are with the employment, appoint and remove employees as provided in section 11 of this charter, except for those employees appointed by council. And then the rest is the same. There's some gender things there, and then it says keep the council advised concerning the financial condition, and future needs of the city, and make such recommendations to council.
I'll move item 13.
Is there a second?
Is that 12?
12, item 12, sorry.
Mr. Perry has made a motion for 13.
Well,
I'll second.
12, all right, properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, we vote the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion's agreed to, 6-0. Next,
This is for the city treasurer. It changes that the city manager shall appoint the city treasurer as per section 11 instead of council.
I'll make that motion to approve.
is there a second?
I'll second it.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion?
how is it done, man?
Council appoints the treasurer.
So
Council and treasurer and clerk, right? Treasurer,
Right,
clerk.
clerk and treasurer and chief of police, city manager and judge.
council. And
That's how it
this-
is now.
And this clarify for me.
This would the city manager would hire the treasurer in the same way that all the other employees are hired.
Is this just for the treasurer?
Yes, not the clerk,
In other words, you would advertise, interview, and recommend.
right?
I move the previous question, previous.
All right.
Item 13.
We'll vote the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The motion's agreed to, 6-0. Madam Manager,
These are just some changes, that we deleted that part about the council may by ordinance create, combine, change, or abolish offices, departments, agencies other than those established by the charter, and the council may assign additional duties or functions to any office and all that jazz. That the committee just felt like that didn't need to be in there.
So this isn't really changing anything. It's just removing number 2.
Yes, just removing number 2.
So move item 16. Proposal 16.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, we vote the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion's agreed to, 6-0.
19 is simply removing all of the things about ordinances and saying the city of Oak Hill will enact ordinances in accordance with chapter 8:11:4 of the West Virginia State Code. That outlines how ordinances are to be adopted.
I make a motion that we accept 19 as amendment.
Second.
Properly moved, seconded, we accept ordinance revision 19. Any discussion? Hearing none, we vote the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion's agreed to, 6-0.
And 20 is just a rewording of all the things that didn't make much sense. In that just says all existing ordinances and all existing administrative rules, regulations, and practices if not inconsistent or in conflict with this charter, shall continue in full force and effect until repealed or modified by the council or other competent authority of the city. All ordinances, rules, regulations, and practices that are inconsistent or in conflict with this charter shall, unless sooner repealed or modified, continue in full force and effect for a period of 60 days only. And at the end of that period shall, to the extent of such inconsistency or conflict, be of no further force or effect.
So move number 20.
I'll second.
Probably moved in second to accept number 20. Any discussion? Hearing none, we vote the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. Motion's agreed to 6-0.
The number 22 is about submitting the budget. And it just simply says the city manager shall prepare a budget in accordance with West Virginia State Code and present to council for adoption by the date established by the West Virginia Auditor's Office.
So move.
The
I'll
other
second.
part had a lot of days in there that it's not good now. That's not the dates that the auditor's office has.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, we vote the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion's agreed to 6-0.
And this taxing powers, the city shall have all the powers of taxation as prescribed by Chapter 8, 1311 of the West Virginia State Code.
So move.
Is there a second?
Wait,
What?
Properly moved and second. Any discussion?
are we completely removing 30? Is it staying 30 with just a change in description? Because there's a line through it.
It's staying 30. That, I
Okay.
think that is was a mistake.
Okay, just wanted to check.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, we vote the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The motion's agreed to.
The next step for this is to have the second reading and a public hearing for all the charter changes. And if anyone objects to any of the charter changes, then you'll have to decide whether to trash it or put it on the ballot.
So the next reading, then the public hearing is after that. Or prior to the second reading,
The public hearing is prior to,
the second reading,
yes. We'll have the public hearing,
prior to the meeting. Like,
right, well, it'll be part of the meeting, and then we'll open the public hearing
right,
and
like
then,
we've done with that.
right. Am I stating that correct? So that's when the public will get their chance to speak on the ordinance that were presented tonight and last month. And it'll be advertised and we'll have a packet available for everybody to look at. Thank you.
You anticipate the public hearing being part of the council meeting?
Yes, well, although, no, I don't think,
Right, prior to.
because I think that's gonna take a while. So we probably don't want to do it with a council meeting.
Probably a special meeting.
Yeah, we'll have to have a special meeting for that. So I'll look at the calendar, we'll get the advertisements because there's so many days and then I'll get with everybody to set the meeting.
Any others?
No, that's all.
Number 10, the Truist drive-through acquisition. Madam City Manager.
I got an email today. I have contacted people at Truist, gone through everybody to try to get someone to reply. So I got an email today. For those of you that, I think I put it in my notes, but Truist will be leaving this drive-in location at the end of March. And I think it would be a good fit for our sanitary board to collect sewer bills through that drive-through. So I got this email today that said that they don't have any information as of yet. They're not planning to do anything until after they close in March. They don't have an asking price, but if we would like to make an offer, then they're just asking us to submit our offer to them in an email, to this gentleman, Nate Pizzinti, in an email. And then they'll keep it in file and they'll contact the people that have made offers.
Mayor, I would make a motion. After the recommendation, didn't make. I move to authorize the city manager and mayor to negotiate with Truist for the purchase of and or donation of in exchange of a tax incentive to include placement of or rental space of the ATM. Now, let me simplify that. Hopefully they would donate, all right? So the negotiations are part of that and after an appraisal, okay? But hopefully they donate it. If they would donate it in exchange for leaving their ATM machine there as an incentive, fine. If they would donate it, if we gave they were allowed to exercise certain tax breaks, not necessarily with the city. And, or if we purchase, then we would, that part of the negotiation would be not any final decision to bring back to council, that they would rent space there, which would be an income for the city again, to leave their ATM machine there. That has been in practice, for example, Erie and East End. Pioneer pays Erie for their ATM machine to be there. Further, as the city manager infers, this would be ideal for the sanitation department, which again, we've had discussions about it being more accessible, more service oriented to the general public. So I agree with the city manager, and that's my motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Properly moved and second. Any more discussion?
I do have a question. With the current BB&T building, is there not a drive-through that we can utilize for that also?
No. There's a facility there, but it's backwards. Like you'd have to drive up through the parking lot and come back around to get the driver's side. And it's really not accessible either by the way it's built up like a sidewalk or brick. I don't know how that drive-through was used because when I started working there, it wasn't. Do you know how, was it a drive-through actually or a walk-up?
I think it was a walk.
I think it was walk-up, yeah.
So after a price is negotiated on, it would be brought back before us, correct?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes. And I would hope they would donate it also because I don't know who else would need that building. Right. I mean, I don't,
Okay.
how would anybody else really use it?
More discussion? We'll vote the motion. All those,
Roll call.
clerk will call the roll.
Diana Janey,
Yes.
Krista Hodges,
Yes.
David Perry,
Yes.
Charles Smallwood Junior,
Yes.
Benitez Jackson,
Yes.
Steve Hazlett.
Yeah.
Motion's agreed to 6-0. Which now moves us to number 11, consideration of the planning commission recommendation to change land classification from R2 residential district to B2 general business district on parcels 54, 55, 56, 58, 70, 72, 73, 75, 76, and 77 in the Highland Heights Edition, 1702 East Main Street, the old Basham Junkyard property. Madam City Clerk, Manager.
This is do you have the recommendation? It was a unanimous recommendation, I believe. To change the classification on this. Yes, 4-0. To allow storage buildings on the property in the former Basham's Junkyard area. I'll
Can we
make
see
that
the map of
motion.
the property? So there's no residence? Where it's gonna be reclassified?
Just one house below it.
Okay. Okay.
You have to match up all the numbers to the
I
numbers
got you.
See on there, 77,
Okay.
76, 75, 73. I think it comes all the way around.
Okay. Okay,
You can see the red is business district
okay,
and the blue is residential, so part of that property is already in business district.
okay.
It's just split, and this is to bring the rest of that property.
All of the
into business
entirety of
district.
it. Okay, thank you.
Any more discussion?
Yes, give a motion in a second.
Do we have that yet? Thought we
Oh.
had.
I made a motion.
We do.
I'll second.
Just a second.
Properly moved and second. Any more discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Again, I say the city for a number of years involves investing attorney fees, notices, on and on and on about the Basham property. And this certainly is an improvement. And an asset to the city. If I recall, when Mr. Legg came before council, he was asked if he would agree to a green belt or a hedge or something in the front of it. And he said he would. Now, would it be appropriate to prove this contingent on him? And I think it would be nice to improve the aesthetics along there rather than just looking at storage buildings.
I wonder if the same things would apply to that as applied to rental properties and VRBOs. You can't apply to one rule to somebody. You can't apply to all of them. You know, we can't ask him to do something just because we're rezoning it.
The
you know-
code specifically addresses Airbnbs. It doesn't address other properties. But again, in the interest of the city, we've been talking for years, beautification, enhancement, improvement, and at his own agreement. In his own agreement, he stated he would do that.
But I don't think we
If
can.
that can't be done, we suggest that we write a letter to him requesting that he live up to or what he had agreed to, what he had suggested, or what he'd agreed to when he came before council.
I mean, we could write him a letter, but we can't say, if we rezone this property, you have to do X, Y, and Z.
Attorney,
Mr. Fowle has a response to this.
Okay.
I actually believe that what you should be acting upon is simply the recommendation of the planning commission.
Okay.
Because they would have had a public hearing, they would have advertised prior to, and then made their recommendations.
And if they would have had that part of their recommendation,
It could have been.
just as they did on the 3 lots, he could have done.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. Any more discussion? That we'd be accepting the recommendation from the planning commission on the old Basham junkyard property. Those in favor, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The motion's agreed to 6-0. Which now moves us to number
Mayor, I
12.
would request that the city manager draft a letter to Mr. Legg requesting that he make some attempt to acknowledge, adhere to whatever adjectives good that the lawyer can add with a hedge or some type of plantings out front.
Number 12, James Buzz Elkins reappointment to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
I
So
make,
approved.
Yep.
So-
second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, we vote the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion's agreed to 6-0. 13 is
This, I'd like to request an executive session to discuss possible litigation.
I move that the council go into executive session for possible legal matters as provided by West Virginia 69A, 4B, 2A, personnel exceptions, and or 69A4, matters involving attorney-client privilege per Peters versus the County Commission 205 West Virginia, 481, 1999.
I'll second executive session.
And we'd like for the fire chief to join us in executive session.
It's been properly moved and seconded that the city council go into executive session for the purpose of reviewing possible litigation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion's agreed to. The city council now is in executive session. Need a motion to bring us back into regular session.
I'll
Second.
second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, we vote the motion. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion's agreed to. We're back in regular session. Which brings us to department reports. We all have, I think, the reports from the police, the fire and city manager. And let's, any questions for Chief Wisman based on his report? Any questions for Chief Richardson of the fire department based on his report?
Very quickly, what's the status of the inspection? Where are we?
Construction, the addition to the fire department.
But-
That's the same thing.
But they are preparing the bid documents. They're preparing to go to bid. Right.
Is there a preliminary
A-
estimate?
Of the amount, or
Well,
I know
that would be
April,
proper.
yeah, April was when they're preparing to have it ready for
Oh.
bid.
City manager's report.
I had a couple. City manager, gave a very good report this month and last. Thank you. Very easy to read and succinct. However, he saw nothing on there about it.
That is still up in the air based on, Mr. Pino has agreed to give us an easement. But he would like to have some things in it that we can't provide until we decide our course of action. So he wants us to say, when we start it, that it's only going to last for a certain period of time. And we don't know how long we're going to need it until we determine what has to be done. So we had a meeting today with the engineer from Thrasher. He's going to talk to the people from the state about replacing that culvert if he determines that that's what needs to be done. He has some other, he doesn't think that the culvert replacement is going to work, but he's going to look at what's causing the bottleneck there. And so he was out there today. We haven't got a report back from him.
Easements are time period, what else? I mean, the culvert doesn't have anything to do with John County.
Well, but if we need it, if we need to be on the property longer, he wants us to
Okay.
tell him how long we're going to be on the property.
And has there been any discussion as to what would be accepted between you guys and him? I mean, I hate to
He
say
just
it.
says, I don't want you on there for a long time.
You don't want to.
So he doesn't want to be an open.
I understand. He was asked there, that was discussed before, and I think Mr. Kirk answered the question at that time. And I don't remember whether you said 60 days, 90 days, 30, or whatever.
We just don't know. We don't know. Depends on the weather, depends on, that's the big question. We don't know.
But I guess what I'm saying, unless someone suggests a time period, he can't say yes or no. It's all out there, the if and ands.
Right.
Yes,
So that's why we were waiting to see what we have to do.
okay.
But I am getting,
Depending on if the state road is going to do something with it.
All right, the other question is, I would like to see a letter drafted to the county commission asking for additional counting machines in precinct 11 and 12. It was a fiasco last time in terms of amount of time that people had to wait to vote 3 hours, 2 hours, and additional machines. would help.
is
Just
that at
by
the
the-
Lewis Community Center?
What's that?
Lewis Community Center?
Precincts 11 and 12.
Okay,
I think both of them are.
I think that's what. I didn't know.
And the other thing, I don't know quite how it handles it, what to say really. Has anyone driven by the Holiday Lodge?
Their sign
Dark.
is lit.
Can't see it.
Can't see it, and I'm
In the parking lot.
telling you what, talking about a lawsuit getting ready to happen. So I've been in contact with him, not over this issue. But at some point, I would hope somehow I can do whatever to give you the call in to say, hey, now, provide some lighting that's been suggested on your parking lot. It's dark.
It's dark.
Gloom.
It is dark.
So the other thing is, I'm in concern with one of my colleagues. When Minden was accepted, or part of the discussion was that Ace was going to build a lodge. So many,
80-room lodge,
what,
80, I think was the number.
and I know you had some discussion, possible discussion. Could you get additional information, what's happened, why that's not being considered?
Yes, my discussion has not been, has not gone very far. But I have a call in. She told me that she would get back with me, and that was, I haven't heard anything back. But Tyler is having a meeting with them this week, Tyler and Josh, on another issue. So I've asked them to try to find out, bring that up, yes.
Flush it out, try to flush it out.
The lodge. Yes, the lodge and the deeds to the properties.
You had it in your report about the deeds, the district property for the parks. Right,
Right.
but
Nothing's happened. I haven't heard anything back on that either.
that was the other guy, right? That
Oh,
wasn't us.
Berwand,
Yeah,
I'm meeting with them next week.
and they agreed. So,
He wants to look at the property to see where it is exactly.
and if I recall, you said quite often. Help me out here, Steve. Ace was going to provide the deeds for those two, brothers, right? Here,
Ace had two
Yes.
properties on the Old Minden Road site.
Sometime got mine here.
We were gonna do the paperwork and then we'll chase Jerry down.
And Mr. Salaji has asked us to do the deeds,
So. I mean,
or the deed for one.
We're gonna do what's that?
We'll get the deeds prepared
Okay.
and then
Thank you.
we'll get Jerry, yeah, we'll get Jerry, yeah.
That's sound like a good plan.
Yeah, you gotta chase Jerry down.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager,
You're
First
welcome.
Lady of the City.
The
MS4.
MS4, you're going to see this on the agenda every month because we are an MS4 community, and we have to have some public input on our MS4 program. So every month I'm going to ask if anyone has any illicit discharges into our streams to report. So if anyone sees something, if they'll call our office here at City Hall, if they see something going into a stream that shouldn't be, or any other stormwater issue, please let us know.
Now brings us to council comments, Ward 2. Nothing.
Charlie, got anything? Oh, okay. I was gonna let them go first. No, the only thing, and, Demita had already brought it up. We met with the stormwater engineer today about the Minden project. He's
That's
just
great.
about ready for a public meeting
That's great.
on that.
Will you let us know when that meeting is, Steve?
It should be, he should be soon,
Yeah.
should be
Is
soon.
that just for amendment or proposed?
Just amended the flood mitigation plan. Yes.
I think the proposed one time, they would continue to develop a city-wide plan.
Well, he's working on the Pino issue. He was going
Right.
out there today and measure grade on it, and so he's working on that as well. Yes.
And they are working on the citywide plan as part of our MS4 program.
And that's all I had, Mayor. Ward 1.
About the recycle, have we made any attempts to try to get that back, or how does that work?
I have not, from what I recall, that Bill did that and it was gonna be very expensive for us to have that because we were gonna have to pay for them to take those items and recycle them.
I have a lot of people that.
Yes.
I'm like my colleague, I've had several people inquire about it.
Mhm.
I remember the discussion when he said it ended up being a trash dump.
Mhm.
But a lot of people.
That's all
I can check into something.
Anyone else in Ward 1?
I have something, Mayor. I'd like to thank Chief Wiseman and his officers. We had a situation over the holidays and his officers went above and beyond. And I'd also like to thank Day Day and Steve for my sidewalk in my house, in front of my house being fixed. So that's all I have.
Mr. Perry?
I would like to see us get some, we get some invitation in the event we'd like to pass something along. Or a list of who's are going to in case we.
They're going to be ready on Wednesday and you said you would deliver some of them.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we have a bunch, we're going to have a bunch ready for you on Wednesday. This is just a draft, so if y'all have anything to change, we are gonna put on there casual attire is acceptable. Because it's not gonna be a dress up,
And these are just
No.
for Oak Hill business owners.
yes, Oak Hill
Okay.
business owners.
So what is the method of deliverment to all of the businesses in Oak Hill for this?
Mr. Perry,
Okay, I will help you get.
if
these
you
set
all,
Friday.
yes, if we need help in getting the word,
Not only others, but entrepreneurs, right?
yes,
Okay.
yes, we have like Airbnbs. We, owner, if we have local owners of Airbnbs, this just, that, I mean, someone else was working on this, so now I have it and, we don't have the list of owners or of business owners that are just local to Oak Hill. It's hard for us just to pull that out.
So if people email to RSVP, you will be able to decipher whether it's just regular Joe from down the street or actually a business owner.
Yes.
Okay. Can we get a copy of this when you're finished?
Yes,
Okay.
I will tell Sherry.
You don't have a, drop dead date on the RFP.
Well, I've planned for 50 people.
I mean, you just
But-
said these suggestions.
Oh,
They need
yes,
to know-
yeah.
they need to
That
know
was the
by these
reason.
who've got it.
That was
Yeah.
the reason why, because I've pretty much locked into 50. I might be able to add some more, but
So
We can
this-
always go to Sam's if we need more.
he'll get some more food.
Pizza Hut, not Domino's. So these will be available Wednesday.
Wednesday,
And
yes,
the union council members would like to pick up some. if it gets possible.
yes, yes.
Something in the
Nice.
database.
Go ahead, David.
So it's
No, go
later
ahead.
today.
I was just gonna say, my only concern is like, I know Angie from Activated Body, there's lots of business owners that are in and out of their properties. That's my concern for them, is making sure we reach all of them.
Right.
So the
And we
other
can
side-
even put it on Oak Hill Info.
That would be great, because if you put it on Oak Hill Info, then we can share it.
Yes.
The only other thing. we'll have
Put it out on
guy
Channel 4 too.
from the,
Channel 4. Local radio stations.
from
Do a PSL.
Architect there.
Yes, he will be there.
I'd like to ask that, Mayor, help me out here. What's your guy's name to come here and talk about? his
David
whole-
Sabre.
I'd like for him to be there and give about a 10 minute and specify. The mayor will have his timer there.
Yes, and we need you to. also
But
say
why
if
would
you
be the
wanna-
purpose of David coming?
So that
Minutes,
businesses that here,
Three or
so that
four.
if and when we make a decision,
Mhm.
they'd be aware,
On the historical district?
unawareness,
Okay.
transparency. Community involvement. So I'd just like to press, again, 5 to 10 minutes, no longer.
You're bringing your clock. I'm telling you, bring your clock.
I got it right here. Bring my shot collar.
And the only other thing I've written my two, but that was too many. There's been things training out there next to Ellison. When it's just projects going on everywhere, I think, I hadn't observed in my short tenure here. Again, I just like Chris, Chief, Day, City Manager, Valerie, Clerk, Tyler, accepting this, sponsoring this. No intention at all by me, and I'm very, here to micromanage or manage what's going on here.
We have a good team.
Yes. Pass that along.
I don't know, Jerry's still out on him. Yeah, he already left us once.
Yeah. But it needs to get me to sign. When's that? Get with the business.
Yes, non-compete. Non-compete.
Can we, Mayor, can we remind everybody that the open period for filing for candidacy is
Yes.
open, it opened today.
Today. So the
Started
end of this
today,
month.
ends January 28th.
So exciting.
Question on that. Does the application come back to here, or do they go to the county commission?
Here,
Do
comes
they have
back
to be
here.
Notarized or not?
Yes, notarized.
Yes, no.
Do we have a notary here?
Yes.
Okay.
And
So
again,
are you
in the-
still a notary?
like Krista said, in
I'm a
defense of the
notary.
Chief,
Darlene, Sherry.
in defense of the chief, obviously the occurrence on Jones Avenue has been under investigation, is under investigation. And some of the discussion, chatter was, why wasn't the information, he released the information the same day. He was on the job that morning. So, that in his defense, affirmative clarification, as Krista said, I think you're talking about something.
What? No, mm-mm. Totally different incident.
So compliments to him and his department and the process and the attempt to notify press.
I'm kind of glad they didn't reach out a whole lot, you know.
Yeah.
That's tragic.
Mhm.
I don't think it's gonna be, I know the public wants information about it, but I think you gotta do,
Privacy.
you got people that's.
Hurting.
Mhm.
People that's hurting, though, you know.
What you said, is your generation.
Yes, right.
And the release is in paper. Other than people out there saying, they ain't going to.
People.
You got that.
That's right. That's what I've been telling everybody.
Gosh.
That was a tragedy.
Yeah.
And there's some that's still going through.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lifelong
Yeah.
thing.
Well,
But again, that was common. Follow up.
Any other comments from Ward 1? And for the mayor comments, I just have a couple of 3 points to make. Next month, as you know, is Black History Month for the month of February. And Oak Hill in the past, well, since I've been here, I guess, we've had a celebration of Black History Month, which is every year in February. And I would like to just simply move ahead and set up a program for Black History Month for the city of Oak Hill. I have an author who has done a great job on writing about Black history in West Virginia. And he's willing to give us a nice presentation and bring his books if he can fit it in. If not, I'll have to figure out, go to Plan B. So unless there's any objection, I will be putting together a Black History Month program. Last year, we had a very good one. We had every Saturday night, we had a speaker on some aspect of Black history, culture, and various other subjects. And I think it went very well. We had a speaker every Saturday for the whole month of February. In fact, city council person from Beckley came to several of those meetings that we had on Saturday last year. Also, I want to start the process of trying to set up a Know Your City Government Day to bring the students from Oak Hill High School over here. This has been brought up and approved before the pandemic. And I forgot who was appointed to that committee. I think Mr. Smallwood was on there, and I think Mr. Jackson was too, and to help start that process. And I will be talking to you, Madam City Manager, as to a date we can have a committee meeting and try to get that structured for maybe April to bring the students over here. I don't know if any other cities in the state do Know Your City Government Day. I don't know of any close by. They might, but I've never heard of any. And do you have any, the 1 cent tax numbers for this month?
No, it'll be toward the
End of the month, okay. And also, Mr. Kirk, I know you went out and checked on out in Colwood Acres I got a call from Bev Hundley regarding a dangerous part of this road there that where the guardrail may be missing or something, and I don't know exactly what area she's talking about. I think you went out and looked once before. If you could, Madam City Manager, check with her and her husband and see exactly where that spot is, because she's very concerned about it. And I think she said her sister, someone went off in that area and went over the hill. So I think if you could check with Bev and see what exactly area she's talking about, I'd be most appreciative. Any future agenda items?
Mayor, I just wanted to make a comment that there were so many people that sent me messages over your Black History Month, and every Saturday, even if they couldn't attend in person, they loved watching the videos after the fact. So
Oh, really?
they were very informative and people really enjoyed them.
I thought they were really good. We had some good speakers.
Yeah, we did.
One of our speakers had been an aide to Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Had worked with him in Atlanta, and that was Reverend English from Charleston, who had been
Mhm.
a close friend, confidant of Martin Luther King, and he had some really good insight to Martin Luther King, which no one else would have been able to know that unless you've been right there with him. And he was with him for years, and I thought he did an excellent job.
You did.
Was Reverend English from Charleston, as did they all. They all were very, very good. Well, thank you. Which now moves us to future agenda items, Ward 1. Ward 2. The next meeting of the Oak Hill City Council will be in this chamber on the 13th of February, 2023 at 5:30 PM with no other business before the city council. All right.
I just want to remind you all of the West Virginia Municipal League Conference. It is on February 13th and the 14th. So just let me know if you want to go. It will probably require you driving back for a meeting that night, because that's the same as our meeting. It's the same as our council meeting.
So it's on the 13th and 14th.
Changed in the past.
Well, yes, and that's also if you want to change the meeting. That would be wonderful with me.
In Charleston again?
Yes.
On Valentine's Day, we can all celebrate together. Yeah.
They just have the meeting down there.
Do you need a motion for us to move?
So I need a day,
I think
yes.
The 6th, that's the first Monday. We do need to notify anybody that has property to be demolished.
We don't have.
We don't
We
have
won't
any.
have anybody
Okay.
on that.
Okay.
February 6th.
All right.
Same time, yes.
So we're going to a common consent. We're going to go with the 6th.
Right. Is that good for everybody? February 6th.
6th.
That's what you said.
5:30.
didn't you? Oh,
Yes.
5:30, yes.
So the next city council meeting would be on Monday, February 6th, 2023. And with that, there's no other business for the city of Oak Hill, the city council. We adjourn.
And don't forget the skate park meeting on Thursday.